Okay, so today we're going to be discussing 10 reasons why Red Dead Redemption 2 is better than GTA 5. Now, for this video, I'm going to be focusing on single player, not online, because personally I think that Red Dead Online just isn't really up to scratch at the moment. It's lacking in content and the gameplay is just not as good as it could be. There's a lot of things that could be changed, so that's why we're going to be focusing on single player aspects today. And anyway, let's just get straight into it. So first on this list is we're going to have the weather effects. Now, the weather effects in GTA aren't terrible, but they're definitely nowhere near as good as the weather effects in Red Dead Redemption 2. So here I'm flying above the clouds in a plane in GTA, and the clouds in the sky, they don't really look that real. They just look like sort of paintings that have just been stuck onto the sky. They don't have any kind of 3D texture to them. You can't actually go near them. They're always in the distance. And when you fly really high, these clouds appear below you, but then when you descend, they sort of just disappear. Like, as you can see now, I'm descending and these clouds have just vanished, which is quite unrealistic. And as I say, the clouds in the sky just look like sort of paintings that have been plastered onto the sky. They don't look very realistic at all. Whereas if we take a look at Red Dead Redemption 2, I think there's definitely a big improvement because the clouds in this game just look more realistic. They look more 3D. They don't look like they've just been plastered onto the sky with a sort of really bad rendering process. They look more fluffy, they have more of a texture, everything looks better. And that's not just it. If you look at the snow effects in Red Dead Redemption 2, the snow's actually 3D and you can actually deform it. In GTA 5 in North Yankton, the snow looks okay, but it doesn't have that 3D effect that Red Dead Redemption 2 has achieved. Anyways, moving on to the next thing on this list, we're going to have the night sky. So here we have the night sky in GTA 5, which again, it doesn't look terrible, but it's definitely a big step down compared to Red Dead Redemption 2. So if we look at the clouds, again, they don't look very realistic. And also the moon is way too big and it just doesn't really look that real. Now, when we look at Red Dead 2's night sky, this just speaks for itself. Just look at the incredible detail they've put into the stars. That just looks amazing. Look at that. That's just incredible. And also, the moon is actually much smaller and brighter, making it much more realistic than it is in GTA 5. And the sky is actually darker, because in GTA 5, the night sky isn't really that dark. But in Red Dead, it actually is much darker, so it looks much more realistic. The stars look much better, and it's just much better quality overall. Here's a side-by-side comparison so you can see the difference. Okay, so next on this list is we're going to have a more developed story in Red Dead 2, because I feel like the whole story in general, the characters, everything just seems more developed, more realistic. Every character has something to them and their characters develop throughout the game. For example, with Arthur, he starts off being quite ruthless and not really caring for his actions, but as the story progresses, he kind of reflects more on what he's done and who he is, and he meets new people and he kind of changes a bit and his character develops. But with Trevor, Michael and Franklin, there isn't really any development. They kind of stay the same throughout the game. They do get more rich, obviously, as the game goes on, but they don't really change. And when you kill, let's say you kill Michael or Trevor at the end, you don't really miss them like you do with Arthur. When he dies, it's like, wow, I can't believe Arthur's gone. And you actually kind of miss him for a bit. And also, other characters are more developed. For example, members of the gang like Dutch, Sadie, Micah. Micah's like a really kind of well put together bad guy, and the reason everyone hates him is because of how well he's put together. There were a few sort of antagonists in GTA like Steve Haynes, but his character wasn't as developed as Micah. They've really kind of thought about Micah and how to make him as hateful as possible, and they've done a good job because obviously everyone hates Micah. And with Dutch, I like the way he sort of starts off sort of caring for the gang and trying to provide for them, and then his greed and his kind of lust for money takes over, and all he cares about is just getting rich, and he kind of loses interest in the gang and everyone else, and then it all kind of falls apart. It's a good story. It's much better than GTA 5, I think. Anyway, moving on to the next thing on this list, we're going to have fighting mechanics. Now, in GTA, the fighting mechanics really don't live up to what they should be, because in previous Rockstar games, I can't remember the names of them, but apparently some of the Rockstar games from previous years have got really good fighting mechanics, but the fighting mechanics in GTA are just crap. They're just very sort of robotic, and they just lack any kind of realism. Like, take a look at this, for example.
happy?
Now let's take a look at Red Dead Redemption 2 for comparison.
You're gonna burn in the lakes of hell! Keep it coming!
Now that to me looks much more realistic than GTA 5. With GTA it's just throw a punch, block a punch, dodge, throw another punch, but with Red Dead it's sort of you can choke someone, you can get punched to the ground, or you can punch someone else to the ground and they get back up again, and you sort of viciously kind of clawing at each other. Whereas with GTA it's just not very detailed, and it's just very sort of, as I said, robotic and just unrealistic. So definitely a big improvement in the fighting mechanics from GTA to Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay, so next on the list, we're going to have more realistic AI. Now, there's definitely a big improvement in the AI from GTA 5 to Red Dead 2, because in GTA 5, the AIs just feel like they're just, you know, copy and pasted onto the map. You'll be walking down the street and you'll see the same AI like 5 times. There's very little variation, and you can't really interact with them. You can press left or right on the D-pad and your character, like Franklin or Trevor or Michael, will say something to them, but you can't actually decide what you want to say. You can't sort of say something negative or positive or antagonise. You just say random stuff, and then the responses they give don't really make sense, and it's just not a very good AI system in general.
Keep on going, dog. You hear me?
Hey, what's up?
So you like try real hard, don't you, homie?
What up, dude? For real.
Now let's compare that to Red Dead 2.
Good reason to be on these gallows, boy.
She finally got it.
Sure was. Hope you find
Move
justice
it, I
for your
said.
ailment, friend.
I'm just curious about the view, I suppose. How about you, partner? You ever see her in the saloon?
Any reason you still hanging around here?
So there you can see a massive improvement in the AI in Red Dead as opposed to the AI in GTA 5. Like the fact that you can actually interact with the AI in Red Dead Redemption 2 and they actually say things that kind of make sense, and you can choose to say antagonise or greet, and they kind of respond more realistically to you, as opposed to the AIs in GTA 5 which just kind of say gibberish that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So definitely a big improvement there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to mention is the fact that you only play as one character in Red Dead as opposed to 3 characters in GTA. And at first I thought, well, it's not going to be as good because we only play as one person, but I think it's actually better that way. Because in GTA, the fact that you keep switching characters means that you don't really get a chance to know them that well. For example, at the start of the game, you do a few of Franklin's missions, and before you even had a chance to know his character, you already start Michael's missions. So it means that you don't really kind of get a chance to know the character and kind of get to experience the game through their eyes, because you're constantly switching from person to person. Whereas in Red Dead 2, the fact that you are only one character, which is Arthur Morgan, means you get to know the character a lot better, and you experience the game through only their eyes, which makes more sense because you can't be 3 people at once like in GTA. So having one character, in my opinion, makes the story flow a lot better. Okay, so the next thing on this list is a bit kind of gruesome, so if you don't like blood and gore, then maybe just skip this part. But anyway, one thing that Red Dead Redemption 2 does much better than GTA 5 is the kind of element of gruesomeness and gore, if that makes sense. So take a look at this. So there you can see if you shoot someone in the head or in the leg in GTA with a shotgun, it doesn't actually do anything apart from just leave red marks. But take a look at Red Dead Redemption 2. So although that's quite gruesome, at least it shows that Rockstar has more attention to detail in Red Dead Redemption 2 and is making the fighting and the mechanics more realistic. So let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so next on this list is we're going to have the fact that Red Dead Redemption 2 has much better police logic than GTA. Here in GTA, I'm landing a helicopter on top of Mount Chiliad, and as we know, Mount Chiliad is, well, a mountain. It's completely isolated from any other towns or villages where there's going to be people. There's absolutely nobody up here whatsoever, and what I'm about to do is blow up this helicopter. Okay, so as you can see just there, I just blew up the helicopter and caused a massive explosion. But remember, this is the top of a mountain, so there's clearly nobody around, right? So no one should be able to report this to the police. But then all of a sudden, I receive a wanted level, and the police seem to know exactly where I am, which makes absolutely no sense because there's nobody around. I mean, like, what? Are the cops just waiting on the side of the mountain or something? How do they know I'm up here? This is stupid. I've always hated the police logic in GTA, and I'm glad that they fixed it in Red Dead Redemption 2. So basically what happens is, if you commit a crime in the middle of nowhere in Red Dead 2 and there's no witnesses, then the police simply don't find out. And that makes perfect sense. Unlike in GTA, where I'm clearly surrounded by no one, and yet the police somehow know I'm on top of this mountain, which, as I said earlier, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So definitely a big improvement from GTA 5 to Red Dead 2, and I'm glad this issue's been fixed. But anyway, let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so the next thing we're going to have is the fact that Red Dead Redemption 2 has better and more detailed gun customization than GTA 5. You can still customize guns in GTA 5, but there's just not much you can do with them in terms of what they look like. You can add performance upgrades, like, for example, a bigger magazine, a scope, a suppressor, maybe a flashlight, but in terms of what the gun looks like, all you can do is really sort of change the skin. For example, you can have like a black skin, a blue skin, and maybe a few other colours, but that's about it really. Whereas if we take a look at Red Dead Redemption 2, there's just so much more you can do with the weapon. Not necessarily in terms of performance upgrades, but more to do with sort of what the gun looks like. For example, you can have gold plating all over it, you can add engravings to it, like you can change what it looks like, you can have no engravings if you want. And also where the wood is sort of on the handle of the gun, you can have like a carving on that, which looks really cool. So definitely a big improvement over GTA 5 in terms of weapon customization. Okay, so the final thing that we're going to cover is how NPCs react to you based on your previous actions in the game. So let's talk about GTA 5. So if you, let's say, I don't know, shoot up an entire neighbourhood in GTA and then run away and then lose the cops, if you return to that place a couple of hours later, it will literally be like nothing's happened. Nobody will react to you, nobody will be scared of you, no one will say anything to you. It will literally be as if nothing ever happened in the first place. So there you can see I'm just going absolutely apeshit and causing chaos by shooting up the cops and the civilians. So let's see what happens when I return after losing the cops.
I should just start cheating too.
True that.
Nice!
Hey, dude.
Yo!
Okay, so as you can see by that footage there, even though I was running around with an assault rifle killing absolutely everyone, when I returned to the neighbourhood a couple of minutes later, it's like nothing happened. Nobody seems fazed by me, nobody seems to remember the fact that I was that guy running around shooting people. It's like nothing happened at all. The AIs don't seem to react to me. It's like I'm just a normal civilian, even though I'm clearly that same guy that was running around with a gun shooting everyone. Now let's look at Red Dead Redemption 2 for comparison.
Don't lock this in.
Hold it right there.
Okay, so now let's take a look at how people react when I return to the town a couple of minutes later.
Don't start no more crap around here.
You don't tell me what to do.
Ain't you caused enough hell around here?
You ain't welcome in these parts no more.
So there you can see in Red Dead Redemption 2, the NPCs actually remember me for what I've done because they can see I was the same guy with a shotgun going around killing everyone, and this time they're saying don't cause any more trouble, and that makes sense, whereas in GTA it's like nothing happened at all, so that's definitely a big improvement between the two games there. Anyway, that's my list of 10 things that Red Dead Redemption 2 does better than GTA 5. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, then feel free to drop a like, and if you're new to my channel and enjoy my content, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.